Good day, I am Rana Anayatin, and I am one among four who will be talking to you about Accountancy Law for the Republic Act 9298. Our report will follow this outline, starting with the title, Declaration of Policy, Objective and Scope of Practice, Professional Regulatory Board of Accountancy, Examination, Registration, and Licensure, Practice of Accountancy, as well as penal and final provisions. Republic Act 9298 is also called the Philippine Accountancy Act of 2004. Its short definition being an act regulating the practice of accountancy in the Philippines, repealing for the purpose Presidential Decree Number 692, otherwise known as the Revised Accountancy Law, appropriating funds therefore, and for other purposes. We start with Part 1, titled Declaration of Policy, Objective and Scope of Practice. Again, this act shall be known as the Philippine Accountancy Act of 2004. With that, its declaration of policy, where the state recognizes the importance of accountants in nation building and development. So with that, it has the responsibility to develop and nurture competent, virtuous, productive, and well-rounded professional accountants. So how will the state do that? It will do that through inviolable, honest, effective, and credible examinations, and regulatory measures, programs, and activities that foster their professional growth and development. So this means that through the declaration of policy, we are being told that the law distinguishes an accountant from a professional accountant through the licensure examination or our board exams. The state develops and nurtures accountants after the board exams when they pass through regulatory measures, programs, and activities that foster our growth in the future for each professional accountant. Now we will proceed to the objectives that the accountancy law has, which are, first, the standardization and regulation of accounting education. Next, the examination for registration of certified public accountants. And the supervision, control, and regulation of the practice of accountancy in the Philippines. We realize that Article 9298 governs accountancy from education until practice, or we can say that it is, or ito yung practice, or yung process of becoming professional accountants. As we can see with the objectives, it starts with accounting education that we must have before we take the examination, which is the second objective. When we are welcome to the practice, then we are still governed by the same law, such that there is supervision, control, and regulation over our practice of accountancy in the Philippines. For the scope of practice, this talks about the four sectors in which a certified public accountant can work, which are the practice of public accountancy, practice in commerce and industry, or also known as commercial accounting or private accounting. 3 is practice in education or academe, and 4 is practice in government. So in public practice, you must be a person or a partner or a staff member in accounting or an auditing firm, or you can also be rendering professional services as a certified public accountant to more than one client on a fee basis. Next is for you to be working in commerce and industry, you must be working in a private firm or commercial or industrial firm. You should be practicing accountancy in this private sector. Even if you are a CPA and you are working in a private company, if you are not doing work as an accountant, this does not constitute as a practice in commerce and industry, because for it to constitute as a practicing commerce and industry, you must be working as an accountant. In practice in education or the academe, you should be teaching in an educational institution, and you are teaching accounting or management advisory services or the accounting aspect of finance, business law, taxation, and other technically related subjects. So although the law prioritizes that CPAs should teach those in accountancy program, it also provides that the members of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines may be allowed to teach business law and taxation subjects. That is because business law and taxation are among their subjects in the bar exams. It is also provided that the position of the dean or department chair or its equivalent that supervises the BSA program in a school must be occupied by a duly registered CPA. So this again is the dean or the department chair. So if in a college such as ours, which is College of Business and Accountancy, where there are business and accounting students, the dean does not have to be a duly registered CPA. However, if that is the case, the department chair should be a CPA. Last is practice in the government. So these are for those who are practicing or holding a position in a government agency or government-owned or and controlled corporation. Then, if you are working in these places, you are considered to be practicing in government. It should be provided that you are working for something that is accountancy related or accounting related, the same as practicing in commerce and industry. So we should all know the importance of a civil service examination when working in the government. However, if you are a certified public accountant, or if we become one, this means that we pass the board exam, and thus CPAs are exempted from the civil service examination to enter the practice in government. But this does not mean that although these four sectors are separated, it does not mean that one accountant cannot work for both simultaneously. We can say that one can be working in the government for the weekdays, however, they could be practicing in academe as well for the weekends. The law does not provide for a limitation in this matter. We will proceed to the Professional Regulatory Board of Accountancy. Professional Regulatory Board of Accountancy, or what we usually hear as BOA, is under the supervision and administrative control of Professional Regulation Commission or the PRC. So ang bumubuo sa Board of Accountancy or BOA ay isang chairman at 6 na miyembro, and all of them will be appointed by the President of the Philippines. When it comes to the Vice Chairman of the BOA, they will be elected by the members since its term will only be 1 year. It is also reminded that in the Board of Accountancy, the four sectors in the practice of accountancy as much as possible should be equitably represented in the board. It is not a necessity or a requirement, but it is a recommendation, or again, as much as possible. In the following slide, we'll be talking about the qualifications of the members of BOA. However, before that, I will share to you some information about the nomination and appointment of these BOA members. So first, the PICPA, or the Philippine Institute of Certified Public Accountants, which are also called the Accredited Professional Organization, or the APO of accountants. They are tasked to give 5 nominees per position to the PRC. So this means that since there are 7 positions in BOA, if they are all vacant, or they will be vacant, PICPA will be passing 35 nominees given 60 days prior to the expiration of the term of those with those who will have a vacancy. So they should be passed 60 days before to PRC. After this, PRC, in coordination with the BOA, shall submit 3 nominees per position to the President of the Republic of the Philippines, where the President will choose one. So in the event that PICPA fails to submit these nominations, or 5 per position, the Commission or the PRC, with consultation with BOA, will submit 3 nominees for the vacant position to the President of the Philippines. So if any one of you wants to be a part of BOA or become a qualifying member of BOA, the first one is that you must be a natural-born citizen and a resident of the Philippines. To clarify, it is natural-born citizen and not naturalized. So hindi pwede ang pinanganak sa ibang bansa at nagpa-naturalize. Second is they should be duly registered certified public accountant with at least 10 years of work experience in any scope of practice of accountancy. Ibig sabihin, within the 4 sectors, as long as there are 10 years of work experience. There must also be good moral character and must not have been convicted, which means there should not be a final judgment that they are convicted of crimes involving moral turpitude. So, if the person is just accused, then there is still a possibility. Lastly, to simplify this, he must not have interest directly or indirectly to a college at that time of his or her appointment to the board. So, sa kahit anong institution, learning institution related to accountancy. The reason being, since ang BOA ang gumagawa ng examinations, if they are part of an educational institution, there might be conflicting interests. But this does not include working in a firm. This only includes educational institutions. So if the certified public accountant is a part of an accounting firm, this does not affect their qualification. Next is their term of office. So, 1 term is equal to 3 years. At kung may dalawang magkasunod na terms, hindi sila pwede na ma-reappoint until the lapse of 1 year. So, kung may vacancy naman at nagkaroon ng filling ng vacancy, it should be filled up for only the unexpired portion of the term. Halimbawa, mula sa 3 years na term, nagkaroon ng vacancy after 1 year, ang pag-fill in ng vacancy dito sa member na ito will only be 2 years. So this is already 1 term for the person who filled for the vacancy. So there is also a maximum service with the board, which is only 12 years. Now we proceed to the compensation and allowances of the board. Although it is not disclosed, it is said that the compensation shall be comparable to other boards, such as Board of Nursing, Board of Medicine, and more boards under PRC. And for the last part of my report, these are the powers and functions of the board. First, to prescribe and adopt the rules and regulations necessary for carrying out the provisions of this Act, to supervise the registration, licensure, and practice of accountancy in the Philippines, to administer oaths in connection with the administration of this Act, to issue, suspend, revoke, or reinstate the certification of registration for the practice of the accountancy profession, to adopt an official seal of the board, to prescribe and/or adopt a code of ethics for the practice of accountancy, to monitor the conditions affecting the practice of accountancy and adopt such measures, to conduct an oversight into the quality of audits of financial statements through review of the quality control measures instituted by auditors in order to ensure compliance with accounting and auditing standards and principles, to investigate violations of this Act and the rules and regulations promulgated hereunder, and for this purpose to issue summons, subpoena, and subpoena ad testificandum, and subpoena duces tecum, to violators or witness thereof and compel their attendance to such investigation or hearings and the production of document in connection therewith. The Board may in its discretion make such investigations as it deems necessary to determine whether any person has violated any provisions of this law, any accounting or auditing standard or rules duly promulgated by the Board as part of the rules governing the practice of accountancy, to issue a cease or desist order to any person, association, partnership, or corporation engaged in violation of any provision of this Act, any accounting or auditing standards for rules duly promulgated by the Board as part of the rules governing the practice of accountancy in the Philippines, to punish for contempt of the Board, both direct and indirect, in accordance with the pertinent provisions of penalties prescribed by the rules of court, to prepare, adopt, issue, or amend the syllabi of the subjects for examinations in consultation with the Academe, determine and prepare questions for the licensure examination which shall strictly be within the scope of the syllabi of the subjects for examinations, as well as administer, correct, and release the results of the licensure examinations, to ensure in accordance with the Commission on Higher Education or other authorized government offices that all higher educational instruction and offering of accountancy comply with these policies, standards, and requirements of the course prescribed by Jade or other authorized government offices in the areas of curriculum, faculty, library, and facilities. Lastly, to exercise such other powers as may be provided by law, as well as those which may be implied from or which are necessary or incidental to the carrying out of the express powers granted to the Board to achieve the objectives and purposes of this Act. To summarize, the powers and functions of the Board start with the education sector, or for those under the BSA program, to the examination, to monitoring the professional regulations or the professional practices of accountancy. So that is all for my part, and it will be followed by Jamaica Gafur Nul. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I'm Jamaica Gafur Nul. Moving on to our next topic, I will now discuss the continuation of Article 2, which talks about the Professional Regulatory Board of Accountancy, specifically under Section 10 to Section 12. Now let's begin with Section 10. Under this section, it states that the Board shall be under the administrative supervision of the Commission. All records of the Board, including applications for examination and administrative and other investigative cases conducted by the Board, shall be under the custody of the Commission. The Commission shall designate the Secretary of the Board and shall provide the Secretariat and other support services to implement the provisions of this Act. So this section talks about the administrative supervisions of the Board, custodian of its records, Secretariat, and support services. Next is Section 11. Under this section is the grounds for suspension or removal of members of the Board. So the President of the Philippines, upon the recommendation of the Commission, after giving the concerned member an opportunity to defend himself in a proper administrative and investigation to be conducted by the Commission, may suspend or remove any member on the following grounds. So, iisa-isahin natin tong mga grounds kung saan pwede masuspend or matanggal ang isang member ng Board. First, neglect of duty or incompetence. Kapag ang isang member hindi na ginawa ng maayos yung trabaho niya or incompetent siya, that's the first ground for suspension or removal. Pangalawa, violation or tolerance of any violation of this Act and its implementing rules and regulation or the Certified Public Accountants Code of Ethics and the technical and professional standards of practice for certified public accountants. So, kapag yung isang member, meron siyang violation ng IRR or Code of Ethics, since yung mga members of the Board ang nag-enact or promulgate ng Republic Act 9298 and they have the power to implement, hindi naman maganda na sila pa yung unang magbabiolate, diba? So, kapag ganon, automatic na matatanggal talaga sila sa membership ng Board of Accountancy. Third is final judgment of crimes involving moral turpitude. Of course, kapag before ka naman ma-suspend or matanggal sa BOA, dapat merong final judgment na convicted ka ng isang crime involving moral turpitude. Such as yung pagnanakaw, rape, murder, homicide, or basta kapag sinabi nating moral turpitude, ito yung mga ginagawa natin na kung saan nakakapagpabago ng moral ng isang tao. These are behavior constituting an immoral, unjust, or unethical. And lastly is the manipulation or rigging of the certified public accountant's licensure examination results, disclosure of secret and confidential information in the examination questions prior to the conduct of the said examination, or tampering of grades. So, itong huling ground is ito na yung kapag nandadaya ka or nilik mo yung answer key ng board exam, automatic na mariremove ka talaga. And for the last section of this article is section 12, which talks about the annual report. The board shall, at the close of each calendar year, submit an annual report to the President of the Philippines through the Commission, giving a detailed account of its proceedings and accomplishments during the year and making recommendations for the adoption of measures that will upgrade and improve the conditions affecting the practice of accountancy in the Philippines. So, note that the Commission in the conduct of the investigation shall be guided by the provisions of Republic Act 8981, otherwise known as the PRC Modernization Act of 2000, its implementing rules and regulations and their respective amendments. So now we proceed to Article 3, wherein I will discuss the Section 13 to Section 20. So under this article, we will tackle the process of examination, yung mismong actual SIPAL examination, then yung registration, and of course, yung licensure. So, let's begin with Section 13, the Certified Public Accountant Examinations. All applicants for registration for the practice of accountancy shall be required to undergo a licensure examination to be given by the board in such places and dates as the Commission may designate, subject to compliance with the requirements prescribed by the Commission in accordance with Republic Act 8991. So take note that the places or venues and dates of examination shall be guided in the schedule of professional licensure examination for the year issued by the Commission. So next, Section 14, Qualifications of Applicants for Examinations. So i-discuss naman natin yung mga qualifications or requisites na dapat ma-meet ng isang examinee or applicants for taking the examination. So, any person applying for examination shall establish the following requisites to the satisfaction of the board: that he or she is first a Filipino citizen, second, he or she is a good moral character, third, is a holder of the degree of Bachelor of Science in Accountancy conferred by a school, college, academy, or institute duly recognized and or accredited by the Jade or other authorized government offices. So, question, paano naman yung mga graduate na hindi BSA program? Kasi yung iba graduate pa sila nung, let's say, year 90s pa. So, paano yung mga ganon? So, mga ganong cases? So, based on my research, pag ganon, ang inaalaw na mag-take ng CPA board exam is yung mga bachelor's degree related to business administration, but major in accounting. So, paano yung mga graduates na yun? Hindi na ba sila pwede mag-take? Again, based on my research, meron ng transition ang Republic Act 9298 stating that all graduates with a bachelor's degree, major in accounting, shall be allowed to take the CPA licensure examination within 2 years from the effectivity of Republic Act 9298. So, meaning hanggang May 2006, since 2004 naman na-implement yung Republic Act 9298. And pag sumobra na siya doon, dapat BSA graduate ka before ka mag-take ng CPA board exam. So last, he or she has not been convicted of any criminal offense involving moral turpitude. So, to support the qualification stated, the following documents shall be submitted in support of the above requirements, as stated earlier. So, first, a certificate of live birth in National Statistics Office or NSO security paper. Of course, para naman mapatunayan na Filipino citizen ka, di ba? So, second, marriage contract in NSO security paper for married female applicants. Ito namang marriage contract is for married female lang. Bakit hindi na nire-require yung mga married male? It's because hindi naman na-change yung apelyado nila. Kaya yung ang nire-require lang is yung mga married female. So third, college diploma with indication therein of date of graduation and special order number unless it is not required. Need din ito in order to prove that you are a holder of degree in Bachelor of Science in Accountancy. So next is baccalaureate transcript of records with indication therein of date of graduation and special order number unless it is not required. Next, National Bureau of Investigation or NBI clearance. So, the reason naman bakit need pa itong NBI clearance is to support yung unang before na sinabi ko dito, which is yung baccalaureate transcript of records. Para mapatunayan na you are not convicted in any criminal offense involving moral turpitude. And lastly, other documents that the board may require. So take note that the board shall not renew a professional identification card or shall suspend or revoke any certificate of registration obtained by false swearing or by any misrepresentation made in applying for registration or examination, and shall not renew nor grant registration to any applicant whose application contains such false evidence or information. So next, section 15 is the scope of examination. The licensure examination for certified public accountants shall cover but are not limited to the following subjects. So as you can see, ito yung mga meron tayong old and meron din tayong new. I know naman na parang almost every one of us is alam yung old subjects na yun. Inan lang namin ito sa slide namin for you to see kung ano yung naging changes sa BLACPA or board licensure examination for certified public accountants. So based on my research, the old BLACPA or have remained unchanged ever since 1975. Kaya naman nung March 9, 2006, change na nila yung old BLACPA subjects na from 7, ginawa na lang nilang 6. Ngayon, kung gusto namang baguhin ulit ng BOA yung composition ng subjects for board exam, technically, magagawa lang nila yun after 3 years ulit. Kasi nga, hindi nila yun pwedeng gawin more often than every 3 years. So, ayan. Next. Section 16, rating in the licensure examination. So, paano ba malalaman ng isang examinee ang result niya after taking the exam? As you can see dito sa table, so meron tayong 3 possible results of this. And these are passed, conditional, and failed. Pero, meron tayong 4 instances na dapat i-consider para malaman yung rating ng isang examinee. First, malalaman natin na ang isang examinee ay nakapasa sa CPA board exam. Yun ay kapag na-meet niya yung 2 criteria. Una, to be qualified as having passed the licensure examination for accountants, a candidate must obtain a general average of 75%. Pangalawa, provided dapat na you have no grades lower than 65% in any given subject. And kapag na-meet mo naman yung dalawang criteria, of course, pasado ka na. Pangalawang instance naman na kung saan conditional yung result ng exam mo is kapag ang general average mo is 75%. Pero kapag meron kang subject na below 65%, meaning hindi mo na-meet yung pangalawang criteria para makapass. So in this case, ang result mo is conditional. Pero take note na hindi automatic magiging conditional yung result mo. Kasi para maging conditional ka, yung result ng exam mo, dapat majority ng subject mo is at least 75%. Kasi kahit na 75% ang average or let's say 90% pa yan, kung meron kang grade sa isang subject na below 65%, hindi ka pa rin pass. Magiging conditional yung result mo. Kasi yun na nga, na-meet mo nga yung general average na 75%, pero meron ka namang grade below 65%. So, ayun, hindi pa rin siya considered pass. So, magiging mapafall siya under conditional. So, by majority, kung 6 ang subject natin, dapat at least 4 subjects is na-meet mo yung at least 75% ng grade. Ngayon, ano namang mangyayari kapag conditional ang result ng exam mo? Take note that a candidate shall take an examination in the remaining subjects within 2 years from the preceding examination, provided further that if the candidate fails to obtain at least a general average of 75% and a rating of at least 65% in each of the subjects re-examined, meaning yung retake mo, he or she shall be considered as fail in the entire examination. So, kung out of 6 subjects, majority nun is 65% above naman ang grade mo, yung 2 subjects lang ang iti-take mo, provided na dapat within 2 years mo lang siya pwedeng i-take from the preceding examination. Ngayon, yung third instances naman is kapag ang general average mo is 75% pababa, let's say 74%, ganyan. Pero, lahat ng grade mo is 65% above, kapag ganito, considered fail ka pa rin. And lastly, yung last instance says naman is kapag yung wala ka talagang na-meet na criteria, talagang hindi ka papasa. Hindi mo naabot yung 75% na average, tapos lahat ng grades mo pababa, lower, below 65%, ayun, automatically failed ang result ng board exam. Please take note that the Board of Accountancy shall submit to the Commission the ratings obtained by each candidate within 10 days after the examination unless extended for just cause. Now, let's move forward to Section 17, Report of Ratings. So, under this section, it states that the board shall submit to the Commission the ratings obtained by each candidate within 10 calendar days after the examination unless extended for just cause. Upon the release of the results of the examination, the Commission shall send by mailing the rating received by each examinee at his or her given address using the mailing envelope submitted during the examination. Provided, take note that the report of rating may be distributed to the successful examinees during their mass oath taking as new registered CPAs. Next is Section 18, failing candidates to take refresher course. So, let's discuss naman this section 18. So, ano bang mangyayari kapag nag-fail ka sa CPA board exam? Generally, pwede ka pa naman ulit mag-try, but as stated in Republic Act 9298, any candidate who fails in to complete certified public accountant board examinations shall be disqualified from taking another set of examinations unless he or she submits evidence to the satisfaction of the board that he or she enrolled in any completed at least 24 units of subject given in the licensure examination. For purposes of this act, the examination in which the candidate was conditioned together with the removal examination on the subject in which he or she failed shall be counted as one complete examination. So, okay. Ito naman yung case kung saan conditional ang result ng exam mo. So, di ba may dalawa or isang subject ka na kailangan i-take. Isa or dalawa kasi 6 naman yung subject. So, ang tinatanggap lang ng majority na dapat mong maipasa is 4. Kaya either 2 or isa lang. So, ayun. Pag tinik mong, let's say, 2, ang dalawa ang nabagsak mo, dapat parehong pasado yun. Kasi kung may isa ka ulit na subject na hindi 75% ang grade mo, bagsak na yun. Pakitandaan lang na baka kasi ma-confuse kayo. So, di ba, kahit na hindi kayo pasado nung unang take nyo, and 2 subjects lang ang iti-take nyo ngayon, kahit na may fail ka ulit ngayon, hindi siya considered as 2 failures. It shall be counted as 1 complete examination kahit pasabihin na 2 examination na ang kinuha mo. Nakadalawang beses ka na nag-exam. So, ayan. Next naman is Section 19. Pag-usapan natin yung ano mangyayari kapag nakapasa ka sa board exam. Ang sabi sa Republic 9298, Section 19, all successful candidates in the examination shall be required to take an oath of profession before any member of the board or before any government official authorized by the commission or any person authorized by law to administer oaths upon presentation of proof of his or her qualification prior to entering upon the practice of the profession. Note that an oath shall be required for CPAs admitted in the practice of accountancy without examination under reciprocity or other international agreements. So, kapag nakapas ka, of course, you are required to attend the oath taking. So, for the last article na i-discuss ko is the issuance of certificates of registration and professional identification card under Section 20, which states that the successful examinees shall receive the following. So, a certificate of registration shall be issued to examinees who pass the licensure examination subject to payment of fees prescribed by the Commission. First is Certificate of Registration or COR. So this bear the signature of the chairperson of the commission and the chairman and member of the board, stamped with the official seal of the commission and the board, indicating the person named therein is entitled to the practice of the profession with all the privileges appurtenant thereto. The said certificate shall remain in full force and effect until withdrawn, suspended, or revoked in accordance with this act. So, okay. So, take note lang na ang COR is hindi renewable. Ang nire-renew lang is yung ID. Yun yung PIC or yung Professional Identification Card. Ito namang Professional Identification Card or PIC is purely card lang talaga, like for the identification purposes lang, indicating na you are really a CPA board exam passer. So this bear the registration number, date of issuance, expiry date, duly signed by the chairperson of the commission, shall likewise be issued to every registrant renewable every 3 years. Note that the registrant has paid the prescribed fee for the annual registration for 3 years, provided further that the reissuance or renewal of the said card shall be subject to payment of the annual registration fees for another and every after 3 years thereafter. So, technically, ang COR talaga ang nagsiserve na lisensya mo to practice accountancy. Kasi kapag hindi ka naka-renew ng PIC mo, of course, CPA ka pa rin. Pero hindi nga lang mako-consider as an active CPA or registered CPA. CPA ka pa rin naman, pero mawawala lang yung pagiging CPA mo kung masuspend or ma-revoke ang COR mo. Kaya ang nagsiserve talaga as your license, again, is your COR. And that ends with my part. Now, let's proceed to the next reporters. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I am Radhia Ampatuan, and I will be discussing the next parts of our report. So, as continuation to Article 3 is Section 21, which states that a roster showing the names and place of business of all registered certified public accountants shall be prepared and updated by the Board, and copies thereof shall be made available to any party as may be deemed necessary. So, sinasabi dito na dapat merong roster of names and place of business of all registered CPAs, and dapat accessible ito to any party. So, the preparation of this roster should be delegated to APO, provided that the Board and the Commission may adopt APO's report as it may deem fit. So, the roster shall be posted on the internet as compliance with the requirement. Next is Section 22, which states that the certified public accountant shall be required to indicate his or her certificate of registration number and date of issuance, the duration of validity, including the professional tax receipt number on the documents he or she signs, uses, or issues in connection with the practice of his or her profession. So, dito sa Section 22, lahat ng pipirmahan ng CPA dapat included ang kanyang COR, PIC, and PTR, pero sa mga documents lang na may kinalaman sa pag-practice niya ng kanyang profession. So, under Section 23 are the grounds for refusal to issue COR and PIC. So, merong 4 na grounds na naka-enumerate dito. First is conviction by a court or criminal offense involving moral turpitude. So, ano ba yung mga crimes involving moral turpitude? It includes everything which is done contrary to justice, honesty, modesty, or good morals. So, that definition is according to the Beauvair's Law Dictionary. Basta any offense or crime that is an insult to morality is considered moral turpitude. So, second, guilty of immoral and dishonorable conduct. So, grounds for refusal din yun. Then, unsound mind. So, dapat sane yung person para issuehan siya ng COR and PIC. Lastly, has falsely sworn or misinterpreted himself in exam application. So, importante that when you take the exam, lahat ng ilalagay mo na information sa exam application is correct. Kapag may misrepresentation or may mali sa exam application mo, hindi ka ma-issuehan ng lisensya. So, Section 24 enumerates the grounds for suspension and revocation of COR and PIC or cancel his or her special permit. So, the first 4 grounds are the same grounds that are mentioned under Section 23. And then we have unprofessional or unethical conduct, malpractice, violation of the Republic Act 9892, and its implementing rules and regulations, the Certified Public Accountants Code of Ethics, and the technical and professional standards of practice for certified public accountants. So, If ma-fall ka to either of these 5, pwedeng masuspend or ma-revoke ang license mo as CPA. And if ever man na ma-revoke nga ang iyong COR, pwede naman siyang ma-reinstate without taking another exam based on the discretion of the board, pero after 2 years pa. Then if ever naman na masira or mawala ang COR ng accountant, pwedeng mag-reissue provided that mag-i-issue ng resolution ng board which is subject to the approval by the commission to grant the petition of the reinstatement or reissuance. So that's it for Article 3. Let's proceed now to Article 4, Practice of Accountancy. So under Article 4 is Section 26, Prohibition in the Practice of Accountancy. So sino-sino lang bang pwedeng maging accountant or mag-practice ng accountancy dito sa Philippines? Section 26 states that for Filipino CPAs, no person shall practice accountancy or use the title Certified Public Accountant or CPA unless such person received from BOA a certificate of registration and professional identification card. So, kung wala ka pang COR and PIC, malamang hindi ka pa registered. Hindi ka pa certified public accountant. So, hindi mo pa pwedeng i-practice yung profession tapos sabihin mong CPA ka. Then, for foreign CPAs naman na gustong mag-practice ng accountancy dito sa Pilipinas, pwede naman provided that there is reciprocity provision. And then, the foreign CPA can secure a temporary or special permit. We also have Section 27. This section states that all certified public accountants registered at the time this law takes effect shall automatically be registered under the provisions hereof, subject, however, to the provisions herein set forth as to future requirements. Certificates of registration, professional license, held by such persons in good standing shall have the same force and effect as though issued after the passage of this act. So, sinasabi lang dito na by the time na mag-take effect itong law na ito, kasabay nun, lahat ng CPAs at the time will be registered under its provisions. Next is Section 28, Limitation of the Practice of Public Accountancy. So, sinasabi sa Section 28 na hindi pwedeng magkaroon ng corporation na CPA firm. Kasi ang corporation, limited ang liability. So, dapat sa CPA firm, ang liability is unlimited to protect public interest. That is why pwede lang siya maging sole proprietorship or partnership. For the Certificate of Accreditation, hindi lahat ay pwedeng mag-practice ng public accountancy. Yung merong COA lang ang allowed. So, ang requirements para makakuha ng COA are, first, CPD units, and then 3 years of meaningful experience. So, after 3 years of meaningful experience, ka pa makakakuha ng COA. So, ang tinutukoy na meaningful experience ay itong mga naka-enumerate dito, itong commerce and industry, and then so on and so forth. So, pwede kang makapag-issue ng COA coming from these different fields. Pero itong nasa huli, itong public practice, kailangan at least 1 year as audit assistant and 2 years as auditor in charge ka. So, for example, fulfilled mo na yung 1 year as audit assistant. Siguro sabihin natin 3 years ka pa naging audit assistant. Pero 1 year ka lang din as auditor in charge. So, hindi pa din yun mako-consider as meaningful experience. Dapat 1 year as audit assistant and 2 years as audit in charge talaga. So, medyo strict pagdating sa public practice. And then Section 29, ownership of working papers. So generally, lahat ng working papers ay mananatiling confidential and pagmamay-ari ng CPA, except if there is a written agreement with the client to the contrary. So kapag may napag-usapan ang CPA and ang client na ibibigay nung CPA yung papers, so isa yun as na exception doon sa general rule. And then, through sub poena issued by any court, tribunal, or government regulatory or administrative body. So kapag ni-require ng court, yun ay isa ring exception sa general rule. Then we have Section 30. So this talks about the Philippine Institute of Certified Public Accountants, or PICPA. So it is stated in this section that all registered CPAs whose name appear in the roster of CPAs shall be united and integrated through their membership in a one and only registered and accredited national professional organization or registered and licensed certified public accountants. So PICPA is the accredited professional organization of CPAs in the Philippines. So it is a non-profit organization registered in the SEC, and it is globally recognized and the Integrated National Association of CPAs. So being a member of PICPA is not a barrier to being member of any other organization or association. So kapag member ka na ng PICPA, pwede ka pa rin sumali sa ibang organizations such as ACPA, PP, ACPAC, NACPAE, and GACPA. So hindi ka pinagbabawalan na maging member ng ibang organization at the same time member ka ng PICPA. So para manatiling PICPA ang APO dito sa Pilipinas, merong 9 conditions na kailangan nitong ma-meet. First, it is established for the benefit and welfare of the CPAs, the advancement of their profession, and the attainment of other professional ends. And then, its membership is open to all registered CPAs without discrimination. So, dapat walang discrimination sa pagtanggap ng members. Dito pumapasok ang third condition. Its membership shall include CPAs in all sectors, namely public practice, commerce and industry, academe or education, and government. So, dapat allowed lahat ng CPAs from different sectors na maging member ng PICPA. Next, it shall have a creditable plan to enlist into active membership within 3 years, at least a majority of the CPAs in the practice of accountancy. So, majority lang kasi hindi naman lahat ng CPA member ng PICPA. At least majority lang ng CPAs na nagpa-practice ng accountancy maging member ng PICPA. Then next, it shall have adequate chapters or regions in major areas in the Philippines to effectively attend to the needs of its members. Its national directors shall be elected in accordance with the provision of the Corporation Code of the Philippines. So, there shall be only 50 national directors unless there is a valid reason to have additional representation. So, the 15 national directors shall be appointed according to sectors in the 4 geographic areas. So that is the NCR, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, based on the ratio of latest available number of members in good standing from those areas. And then it shall be judicious and prudent in the management of its financial resources, and for this purpose its chapter, region, or national office and their respective foundation shall keep proper books of accounts and submit audited annual financial statements thereof. So, para masabing judicious or prudent ang PICPA, kailangan niyang mag-submit ng audited annual financial statements. And then it shall have full-time career executive director who shall implement the policies promulgated by the PICPA Board of Directors and shall have direct supervision over the PICPA Secretariat. And then it is duly registered as a non-stock corporation or association by the Securities and Exchange Commission or SEC. And finally, it has paid the prescribed accreditation fee. So, the renewal of Certificate of Accreditation of PICPA is every 3 years. Then, ang cancellation naman ng COA ng PICPA, so merong 5 grounds or causes dito. So, first, it has ceased to possess any of the qualifications for accreditation. Then, it no longer serves the best interest of the CPAs. Next, it did not achieve its plan provided to enlist into active membership within 3 years, majority of the CPAs in the practice of accountancy. And then it has committed acts inimical to its members and to the profession. And then it has not renewed its certificate of accreditation after a lapse of an unreasonable period for the date of its scheduled renewal. So basically, kung meron siyang hindi na-meet dun sa mga requirements, maka-cancel yung COA ng PICPA. So, sa Section 28 kanina na pag-usapan natin ang Certificate of Accreditation ng CPA. So, take note that the COA is valid for a period of 3 years only. Ang expiration and renewal ng COA is every 3 years. So, the renewal may be on or before September 30 on the year of expiry. Then, ang expiration is on December 31 of the 3rd year. Take note also that on the first renewal, the year of accreditation is counted as 1 full year. Meaning, regardless kung kailan nabigay yung accreditation, 1 year pa din ang bilang. So, for example, November 2020 yung first renewal. So, ang bilang doon is November 2020, 1 full year na yun. And then, November 2021, second year. Tapos, November 2022, third year. So, dapat by September 2022, nakapag-renew ka na ulit. Pero, applicable lang yun sa first renewal. Sa mga subsequent renewals, normal na yung counting. So, 2022. So, applicable siya for 2023, 2024, and then 2025. Yung susunod naman na renewal. So, Section 31 states that a CPA shall practice only under an individual, firm, or partnership name allowed in accordance with Philippine laws and shall not include fictitious names. So, bawal yung mga names na gawa-gawa lang. And then, bawal din mag-indicate ng specialization. And then, misleading as to the types of organization. So, dapat malinaw kung sole proprietorship ba siya or partnership or firm. So, for the death or disability of an individual CPA and the solution or liquidation of a firm or partnership of CPA, so it shall be reported to BOA within 30 days upon occurrence. So, pagdating naman sa death or disability ng isang CPA, kailangan ma-report yung pagkamatay or yung disability niya within 30 days upon occurrence. Also, partner surviving the death or withdrawal of all the other partners in a partnership may continue to practice under the partnership name for a period of not more than 2 years after becoming a sole proprietor. So, if ever na sa isang partnership namatay or nagkaroon ng withdrawal yung ibang partners, so yung natitirang partner, pwede niya pa rin gamitin yung pangalan ng partnership pero for not more than 2 years. after niya maging sole proprietor. So, applicable lang ito kapag isang partner na lang yung natira sa partnership. So, bakit ganun? So, ang purpose, bakit allowed pa din na gamitin nung natitirang partner ang name ng partnership? Kasi, parang preparation na din siya sa mga clients sa pagpalit ng name nung partnership from the name of the partnership to a new name as a sole proprietor. So, parang transition period yung 2 years. So, that's it for my report. Let's proceed now to the next reporter.
So, start with the section 32, which is the Continuing Professional Education Program or yung CPE. So, a CPA Council is created to implement the CPA program. So, the Council will be responsible for ensuring that all CPA students meet the requirements, rules, and regulations promulgated by the board. So, ngayon naman, let's talk about the credit units of CPE. So, before, from 60, naging 120. But ngayon naman, ang nire-require na lang for the renewal of license is 15. And lahat ng newly licensed professional ay exempted sa CPE. But, take note, yung first renewal lang nila yung exempted. So, after ng first renewal nila, hindi na sila magiging exempted sa pagkuha ng CPE. Next, we have seal and use of seal. Certified public accountants will use a seal prescribed by the Board of Auditors, bearing the registrant's name, registration number, and title. The auditor's report shall be stamped with a said seal, indicating his or her current professional tax receipt or PTR number, date and place of payment when filed with government authorities or when used professionally. So, lahat ng seal ng mga CPA firm is ganito. May isang bilog na nakapaloob sa isang malaking bilog, which is ito. Then, sa gitna naman, may nakalagay na CPA or Certified Public Accountant. Sa taas naman, kailangan nakalagay yung pangalan ng firm. And sa baba is kailangan nakalagay yung registration number. So, take note na every time na nagsisil ang CPA, it indicates that the firm complies with the professional standards. Next, we have foreign reciprocity. Subjects or citizens of foreign countries may be allowed to practice accountancy in the Philippines in accordance with the provisions of existing laws and international treaty obligations. A person who is not a citizen of the Philippines cannot practice accountancy unless he or she can prove in the manner provided by the rules of court that he or she is a citizen, subject, or national of another country. So, if you are a foreign CPA but you want to practice the profession here in the Philippines, you may do so, provided that you have foreign reciprocity, meaning yung mga CPA dito sa Philippines is also allowed to practice their profession sa bansa na pinanggalingan mo. Kasi kung hindi, then you are not allowed to practice your profession sa Pilipinas. Kasi nga, bawal. So, itong section na ito ay connected sa section 35, which is the coverage of temporary or special permits. So, special or temporary permit may be issued by the board subject to the approval of the commission and payment of fees the latter is prescribed and charged thereof to the following persons: a foreign certified public accountant called for consultation or for a special purpose, which in the judgment of the board is essential for the development of the country. So, ganito yon. If ever na mayroong foreign reciprocity or reciprocity provision, kailangan na i-secure ang special permit. So, hindi lahat ng CPA galing sa ibang bansa ay allowed to perform their profession sa Pilipinas. Meron lang tayong tatlong senaryo kung kailan pwedeng i-issue ang temporary or special permit. First, if yung foreign CPA is sinawag for consultation, which is important for the development of our country, given na walang Filipino CPA ang qualified for such consultation. Of course, bago kumuha ng foreign CPA, kailangan alamin muna if may competent Filipino CPA ba na pwedeng gumawa ng consultation. Second, pwede naman na yung foreign CPA ay mag-serve as a professor in the field of accountancy, essential for the development of accountancy education in the Philippines. And lastly, the third one, kailangan na yung foreign CPA is internationally recognized expert in any branch of accountancy, which is essential for the advancement of accountancy in the Philippines. Take note, if you're a foreign CPA, then if you want to be a professor, at the same time you are a consultant here in the Philippines, you need to secure 2 separate special permits. So, magkaiba sila, hindi sila isahan. Next, we have the Article 5, the penal and final provisions. So, Section 36, the penal provision. Any person who violates the provisions of this Act or any of its implementing rules and regulations as promulgated by the Board, subject to the approval of the Commission, shall be punished by a fine of not less than 50,000 pesos or by imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years or both. So, this is the penal and final of RA 9298. So, if from the word itself, so if you have violated the provision of 9298, you will have to pay a fine of not less than 50,000 or imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years. Worse is kapag both ang magiging penalty mo. Next, we have Section 37, Implementing Rules and Regulations. So within 90 days after the effectivity of this Act, the Board is expected to adopt and promulgate new rules and regulations. So according to Republic Act 9298, within 90 days, take note of the days, within the effectivity of this Act, BOA should adopt and promulgate the IRR of RA 9298, and the effectivity of the IRR shall take place after 15 days following the publication of the IRR in any major daily newspaper of general circulation. Let's proceed to Section 38, the interpretation of this Act. So, which states that nothing in this Act shall be constructed to effect or prevent the practice of any other legally recognized profession. Next is the enforcement of the Act, which is the Section 39. The primary duty of the Commission and the Board is to effectively enforce the provisions of this Act. So, lahat ng constituted law enforcement agencies, officers of national, provincial, city, or municipal government, or any political subdivision thereof, shall upon the request of the Commission or the Board render assistance in enforcing the provisions of this Act, and to prosecute any person violating the provisions of this. So, yung Secretary of Justice or yung duly designated representative ang dapat na mag-a-act as a legal advisor to the Commission and the Board, and shall render legal assistance as may be necessary in carrying out the provisions of this Act. So, any person may bring before the Commission, Board, or the aforementioned officers of the law cases of illegal practice or violations of this Act committed by any person or party. So, the Board shall assist the Commission in filing the appropriate charges to the concerned prosecution of is in accordance with law and rules of court. Next, we have Section 40, the funding of provision. So, the chairperson of the PRC or the Professional Regular Commission shall immediately include the implementation of this Act sa Commission's programs and the funding of which shall be included in the Annual General Appropriations Act. Next, we have transitory provision or Section 41. So, the incumbent chairman and members of the board shall continue to serve in their respective positions under the terms for which they have been appointed under Presidential Decree Number 692 or with the need of new appointments. So, nakasaad din dito na dapat lahat ng graduates ng BSA or ng Bachelor of Science in Accountancy shall be allowed to take the licensure examination within 2 years from the effectivity of this Act under the rules and regulations to be promulgated by the Board, subject to the approval by the Commission. Next, Section 32, Separability Clause. So, if ever na there are clause, provision, paragraph or part na will be declared as unconstitutional or invalid. Such judgment shall not affect, invalidate, or impair any other part, but shall be merely confined to the clause, provision, paragraph, or part directly involved in the controversy in which such judgment has been rendered. Next is the repealing clause, or section number 43. So, Presidential Decree number 692 is hereby repealed, and all other laws, orders, rules and regulations, or resolutions of parts thereof, inconsistent with the provisions of this Act, are hereby repealed or modified accordingly. And last but not least, we have Section 44, or the effectivity. So this Act shall take effect after 15 days following its publication in the Official Gazette or in any major daily newspaper or general circulation. So that's the end of our report on the accountancy law. Thank you and have a good day.